You're listening to Funny Peculiar with Jeff Downs.
Welcome to another episode of the Funny Peculiar podcast, and this week it's a groundbreaker because it's not just one poet, it's four poets, collectively known as Bard Company, and the lights just come on, beautiful, and you can hear them. So if I'll just go round now saying hello to Ian Whiteley.
Hello there.
So you know their voices, Jeffarama.
How do?
There we are, and Gordon Zola.
Hi.
And Tony Kinsella.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
Now, that is your stage names as you are individually, but collectively you are Bard Company, and you have your own Bard Company names, is that right? Yeah. So we'll go round. So you are, Ian?
Rocky Bard.
And Jeffarama?
Punky Bard.
And Gordon?
Cheesy Bard.
And Tony?
I'm Bolshy Bard.
And that's it, you're the socialist, well, you're all socialists in a way, aren't you?
Yeah.
So
I'm only Bolshy because I argue all the time.
Okay, and so we're just chatting there. It's 5 years since Bard Company's been going. So, how's that been over 5 years? Have you enjoyed it?
It's been a fantastic experience, yeah.
And what sort of gigs do you do mostly for people that have never had Bard Company before or not seen you? How would you describe your act?
Well, we started off as more of a comedy poetry act and then introduced music, and I think we've moved onwards from that now to be more of a political poetry music act. So the comedy probably takes a slightly lesser role than what we had envisaged when we started, I think.
It does, but we still like to involve the comedy.
Yeah,
we do. I mean,
because you've done a lot of comedy poetry before, Gordon. So I've known you as a comedy poet. When did you start? Doing your own comedy poetry?
In the 1990s.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So back when it kind of wasn't that. Now there's quite a movement for poetry, but back in
there was at that time, really. I mean, Tony was sort of similar part of it, wasn't he? Really, and. There was like a core in Manchester, really. I mean, and there's not much of that core left now, but there's probably more diverse venues and everything. But
it is a move. Again, we rattle out the great names like John Cooper Clarke, and these are the big ones. But I think for a lot of people, there are movements going in, and you've got your sort of, the poets, the grassroots like you guys that. And it's quite in the northwest of Manchester. There's always been a history of that, hasn't there? I
mean, one of the main guys was Chloe Poems.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah. Who's I forgot his real name now. Jenny Potter.
Yeah. Right, okay. And because Chloe's like a sort of drag character.
It was,
and so I think I've seen that.
It was called the Gingham Diva.
Oh right, okay. Yeah. I never heard that one. And of course the Hovis Presley, who was. Did you? And have you gigged with Hovis? Did you?
I gigged with Hovis quite regularly. Yeah, he was very much a mentor. He was one that everybody looked up to at the time. Yeah, but he passed away about 20 years ago. But I can still quote lots of his lines.
But he was massive, and he kind of. So did he explode it for the Manchester poets then?
Well, I mean, I'd never met him personally because I didn't start the poetry myself until about 11 years ago. I'd never written anything in my life, but and in a way I kind of missed that in that I'd never met Elvis Presley, even though he was a Bolton performer. And he sort of like been an inspiration to people like Dave Morgan and Paul Blackburn and Nat Clare and what have you, and that kind of scene and that. Yeah, even people who aren't John Cooper Clarke can still have something to say.
I mean, I'm not from Manchester, so my early inspirations in poetry were punk poets like Patrick Fitzgerald and John Cooper Clarke, which is ironic, really, because that is a Manchester poet. Patrick Fitzgerald was a London punk poet, and he sort of recorded poetry with an acoustic guitar backing, which is sort of where we sort of started with it as well. So I think because I'm from West Yorkshire, some of these references don't mean anything to me because I wasn't involved in that scene.
Well, that's what I say. It has all changed now, really, hasn't it? I mean, it was, but it used to be based around slams, really, didn't it, in the early days?
And for slams, for people that don't know that's just like literally a gathering of poets that just get up and perform their stuff.
It's more competitive though, because you do win it at the end of the evening.
You get a score, so
Right.
it's like it's very subjective.
Yes.
A bit like battle rap, isn't it? But for poetry, so it's battle poetry, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's always been around. It
still is.
It still is. It still goes.
Yeah.
What's some of the nights that's still where you can go to see that then? If anybody's interested, is it Right Out Loud? Is that?
No,
That's not.
Slam, no.
And what and who? And is that Dave Morgan? Right. Out
Well,
Loud?
no. Well, Dave Morgan and Paul Blackburn and a few other people were sort of like the founders of Right Out Loud about 15 years ago in Bolton.
Yeah.
But people like myself and Alan here run the Bolton night, and different people run, and Ian's taken
I've
over
just
the
taken
Wigan
over the
night.
Wigan one, so
Okay.
we are quite involved in that.
So there's a few Northwest nights on that, but
Yeah.
we rarely do slams. In the early days, it was a lot of slams, but it doesn't seem to happen now. You could just go along without the competitive edge and do your poem.
Sure.
Yeah,
And
probably.
there seems to be a community spirit. It's got
Well,
everybody
yeah.
helping out each other.
Well, there's a website as well, so people can blog the poetry on there. That's how I got into it.
Yeah.
Somebody came, Julian, who set it up, came to a Wakefield gig at the Red Shed, and he handed some leaflets out about this site where you could log your poetry, and I thought, well, that's a good way of getting it out there.
Yeah.
And from that, found out about the nights that are run. In fact, I went to your night very early on in my poetry times over here. That's where we met.
So when did you start, Ian? When was
Well, I've written. So I wrote at school, so I was writing poetry at the right time, really, when punk poets were a big thing, and I was writing that sort of style in Wakefield, and there were quite a lot of poetry nights in Wakefield where that sort of stuff went down well, and then I sort of went underground a bit and just kept writing but not performing it. And it was only really when I found a bit of time from work, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, that I started getting all that back together again and compiling what I'd done before and producing some collections. So I've not really been at it as long as these guys. It's only really on the performance side maybe for the last 6 or 7 years.
And was there something for you that sort of 7 or 8 years ago that was the spark?
Well, I was finishing work. I took early retirement, so I had more time on my hands. And although I'd written sort of in the office and just written stuff down and had a bit of a go at it, I'd not done anything with it. I'd not produced a collection, or I didn't get out and perform it. It was only really when I had more time on my hands to be able to go find that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And as I say, Right Out Loud was the chrysalis really that got me started.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. And Jeff, what about you? How did you sort of?
Well, for me, it was kind of something that, I don't know, a bit of spiritually meant to happen thing, because I say up to 11 years ago, I'd never written anything. I always wanted to, but never got round to it. And I started after a particularly dark time in my life, drinking far too much and I was really in a bad way. And I was kind of looking to write, and I was getting myself a bit better, and I started writing something, and then by some strange happening, a leaflet came through the door to say that there was a local reading night going on, held by Right Out Loud and a lady called Val. And I thought, this is a bit strange, I'll go along. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, and then went to the Howcroft the month after, and just kept going. Met Mr. Zola and a few other guys, and I said, all right, come back, and we do this every month.
He did Punk's Not Dead.
Punk's Not Dead was my
Punk's
first
Not
ever
Dead.
poetry.
Really? So,
And I come off, I was shaking like a leaf, but I couldn't believe that I'd done it, and I never looked back. It was fantastic, and things start. You'll know from yourself from performing. You meet just different people, and the kind of net spreads, doesn't it? And from doing a lot of solo stuff, and 5 years ago, Ian suggested Bard Company to me, and we thought, who do you want to get on? Who shall we get on board?
Yeah. What a
We wanted a blend, didn't we? The idea was we didn't just want, because me and Jeff are a little bit similar in the, I think rock music, sort of punk rock, or in my case heavy metal rock, drives the type of stuff we do a little bit. But we didn't just want it to be that. I just didn't want 4 people like us doing it. We wanted a blend of humour, and we wanted comedy. And really, I just said to Jeff, well, who do you know that's not directly like me and you, a bit aggressive rockers, and although they like the rock music, these two, I think their skill set is is very complimentary to what we're
Well,
trying
yes,
to do.
because it brings me neatly. Because Gordon, I bumped into you in a pub somewhere when I first came to Manchester. You were doing, and Tony as well, because you do stand up.
My background is stand up. Like Ian, I've been dabbling in poetry since my school days, but when I started performing, I was exclusively performing stand up comedy. A lot of wordplay and a lot of kind of one-liners and stuff, but that kind of lends itself to comic poetry as well, so I started integrating short poems into it. I was also in a double act called The Bootleg Mark Chapman's with a musician called Dave Lockley. We were writing original songs and parodies of famous songs, so again that kind of blended quite nicely into part of the angle that Bard Company were looking for, because I had that background as well.
You used to be called Tony Baloney, didn't you?
I was performed as Tony Baloney, yeah.
So where did Tony Baloney come from?
I don't know. I suppose I didn't want people to know that I was doing comedy until I was reasonably good at it. So I wanted to kind of disguise my name. It was nothing to do with keeping the Inland Revenue off my back. So I've never really earned any money out of it, so they wouldn't have got anything off me anyway.
Okay, and you knew Homies quite well, but you'd also, the Comedy Balloon's quite a famous gig in Manchester. And I think I
used to help to run it with Jason Cook, who still runs it, and a couple of other people. Yeah.
And sort of, what are the comedians at the time that used to rock?
Yeah, I mean the thing about stand-up comedy is that everybody started somewhere. So I've been doing comedy since '99. Never really made much money out of it, but I've gigged with Johnny Vegas, John Bishop, Sarah Millican, you name them, and they've probably done a gig somewhere in Manchester, and I've been on the same bill at some point. So there was that kind of really democratic process of people doing open mic just to get used to stage time. So it was a very good learning curve, really. And
who was the sort of one comedian out of the early days that you most admire or think they've still...
Most admire? Possibly Gary Delaney, because I like my one-liners, but I suppose the one who started off as a pot collector and has now gone to massive things is somebody like Jason Manford, who was very much just part of the Manchester circuit, and even when he was quite a big star, would still come back and do the Comedy Balloon and the Frog and Bucket, and just for the sake of kind of giving something back, I suppose.
This is a scoop. He's a pot collector.
He was a pot collector. There was a very famous night that a guy called Angerman ran, called The Buzz, which was probably at the time there weren't many comedy nights. That was the one to get on. It was an absolutely fantastic night. And the story is that Jason Manford was a pot collector at the age of 16 or 17 in the southern pub where the Buzz was run. And one night one comedian didn't turn up, and he just said, I'll get up and do 5 minutes, and just got up and did 5 spontaneous minutes, and I don't know whatever happened to him, but apparently he never looked back.
And Gordon, similar story for you? Or?
Yeah, I used to do quite a bit of the Buzz Club and that.
And would you just do solely comedy poetry, or did you do one-liners?
Yeah, I used to do one-liners as well as what's it really. I mean, I must admit, I was sort of, I don't know, sort of in between the comedy and the poetry.
Yeah,
it was weird, really. I mean,
would you switch between the two and perhaps do both comedy and
yeah, did really, and like Tony. I mean, I remember one bill at the at the Buzz Club. Alan Carr and Jimmy Carr were on the same bill, and Alan Carr went down brilliantly, and hated Jimmy Carr because of his sort of southern arrogance and everything. Yeah, they did. But Elvis used to be on.
Yes,
loads.
And he was a regular.
Yeah, he was.
I saw Lee Evans there, Richard Ione, who's gone to do the IT crowd. I've seen him there. Darren O'Brien's been there, so they all kind of pass through these clubs on the way to bigger things. And
with Bard as well. So we kind of got the background there. So it was about 5 years ago that Ian, was it that you were toying with the idea?
Yeah, I'd seen a Wakefield group called A Firm of Poets, who were literally a group of pretty well respected poets on the circuit, people like Matt Abbott and Genevieve Walsh and Matthew Headley Stoppard, John Darwin, and they had a sort of like interchangeable group that would perform poetry as a group. But what happened was that 3 of them would sit down and one would get up and do the poem, and then they'd sit down. So it was like an interchangeable group that went everywhere together. So instead of turning up to an open mic on your own, they were a headline act that did the full thing with a support act. And it seemed like a good idea, but I'd had an idea because I come from Wakefield and travel over there quite a lot. I wanted to do something between Lancashire and Yorkshire, almost like a battle slam, where you'd choose a team from Yorkshire and a team from Lancashire, and you'd sort of like match up and play off against each other with poetry. So I mentioned it to Ralph Dartford, who was one of the organisers, and he was going to get back to me, and I think he had some personal issues, and he couldn't do anything at the time, and it dragged on a little bit, and in the end I just sort of lost heart in that a little bit. I thought, well, just do it. So I knew Jeff quite well and said, I've been having this idea about putting a group together, a bit like a firm of poets, but what do you think? Do you know anybody else who'd fit the bill really to, not take it a step further, but we wanted to do a little bit of music with it, a little bit of comedy with it. We didn't just want it to be standing up and doing a poetry reading, and then your mate gets up and does a poetry reading.
We went interactive, didn't we?
Yeah, and we've actually not done that at all. Have we? We've never done that. I'll get up, then you get up. So not. I think we've just not fallen into doing that. I think we've made a conscious effort to say, whilst we might do a solo spot within the set, really we try and get everybody involved in everything.
So it's the four of you. So just to describe, it's kind of because you all have various sort of. So you do more music, sort of based poetry. Jeff, you play guitar as well, don't you?
Yeah. Every now and again, I'll play a guitar and we'll do an acoustic track.
Yeah.
So throw something in, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to keep it something different all the time. So, say in a set of 10 tracks, there'll be quite a bit of variety in it.
Yeah.
Be somewhere we'll take lead vocals each, or we'll do the vocals together. They're all stuff that we've all written, or I'll do a track on guitar and we'll all, or I'll sing and then we'll do the chorus together. So there's always something different going on for every track.
Bit of dressing up,
we still do.
We still do
that. I mean, the thing is as well with Bard Company, what we also wanted to do that was different, we didn't just want to turn up and do just what we wanted. We've always tried to do events that are kind of a little bit different, but something we've had to work towards to get a different set together.
Right, okay.
So we started off doing the kind of more comedy things, and we did stuff for Mind.
We did a set of the Balloon,
So let's take us back to the first gig you did as Bard Company. Where was it? Can you remember the date, and how disastrous was it?
Absolutely disastrous.
What do you remember?
Well, Ian Whiteley, our great guru and motivator, decided that was the day that he was going to take ill on the morning. So
that's how it's right.
Very selfish.
It was in Tilsley, in a very nice venue that we've done many times before. But I think it just kind of fell apart at the seams, didn't it? We hadn't rehearsed it enough. We turned up and tried to do it on the.
So this was part of another poetry night, and you were slotted in a.
It was part of another night that I used to run called Guitar and Verse. And we used to have I always had a guest on, and normally a guest singer-songwriter, a poet supporting, and the rest of it was open mic.
Right.
I think you've been on yourself, and we used to do them nights regular. But when we started getting this band together, it's all right. Well, we'll headline it, so we'll do this set between the four of us and just see how it goes.
We will.
I'd just come back from Canada, and I timed it perfectly. I'd just come back from Canada, and it must have been something I'd eaten, because I started the night before and I was up all night and I didn't know how to contact him. I was like, if I can't get him first thing in the morning, what I'm going to do? And luckily I got hold of Jeff and said, I just can't do this gig. I literally could not leave the toilet. Right. So without going into more graphic detail than that, so I could not believe that we built up to this gig, and then there were no plan B really. There were four of us, so all the parts I would have done got dropped. And
so did you turn up? Did you?
No, we didn't.
I could not have left the house. Seriously.
I was going to say, so the three of you had to go on.
It was like the Beatles doing a gig without John Lennon at Shea Stadium 10 minutes before the.
So who then covered Ian's part?
They just dropped on me.
I think at that stage, to be fair, we were trying to take our own individual poems and try. Alan had one that was to do with country and western, which he'd done before. But the rest of us, Jeff and I, hadn't rehearsed it enough and didn't know what the cues were and what we were supposed to do and when, so it was all a bit shambolic.
I
But
don't think we had cowboy hats on that.
yeah, so that you know it was a country and western song. Yeah.
And what was the song you did?
I'm trying to think. I can't remember.
Is it?
Well,
Well,
diddly died, or wasn't it?
No,
Oh,
no,
no,
that's
with the
the
boat,
folk
the
thing.
boat round with your 10-gallon hat.
Yeah, that's
You can see how memorable this was.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Well,
I must have
yeah,
dropped it
that's
after
it.
that one gig because I've never performed that.
Walking around, not walking, what was it?
Riding around the
No,
boat
it
round or
wasn't
something.
riding.
so you got through this one, admittedly.
Yeah.
One member's short. So when was the next one? When do you think? This is Bard Company. And by the way, just to clear up for Bard Company, which is, I take it, a play on Bad Company, which is the rock band.
Yeah.
Just for anybody listening. That,
People have turned up thinking we were a bad company.
have you had
Yeah,
some?
they're extremely disappointed.
Or they just automatically think it's bad company and then they look at you
They
and
think
it's strange.
So they think it's a spelling mistake.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a tribute band for and right.
Well,
Okay.
well, we had to. We put a few names forward between us for different names for the
Right.
band, and that ended up being.
Oh God, give us some other
favourite
names.
one.
I was a big fan of Angry Bards.
Angry-
I really wanted Angry Bards, but
Yeah,
it would have suggested we were just
Yeah.
a ranting political band, and we had humour.
Perfect name for us.
Oh, which was, of course, off the Angry
Angry
Birds.
Birds, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Any more?
Can't remember about
We had
it.
a lot.
Sweaty anyway.
But yeah,
We did it very. We were unlike Brexit. We were very democratic, and we just dropped the ones that were less popular until we ended up with 2 and voted for the one we wanted.
There was no referendum.
About 3 hours
No
of a pub.
referendum,
Good
yeah.
excuse.
And so when sort of did you find, I don't know, a month later, 2 months, 6 months, when you found, is there a gig that where you thought, that's it, that was a good gig, this is Bard Company, we're off and running, was
I
there?
suppose it was. I mean, the first one was a bit like the Sex Pistols at the Lesser Free Trade Hall. It was that shambolic, but we thought we've got to have another go at this, obviously with Rocky Bard in. So and I can't remember.
It was
I
what's
think
it?
we're probably pretty crap for about a year, in all honesty.
Brooklyn, yeah, upstairs.
Yeah.
We had a better gig at the Brooklyn, where we used
We
to
did
do
Awful
right
Folk
songs.
song and
I think the one we did at Comedy
Roadie.
was terrible, wasn't it?
And what about, okay, so what about, what's the best Bard Company gig? And you've done sort of quite a few political gigs at Bolton. And,
Yeah, I mean
obviously-
that's it. I
Where
mean,
was the one where you think that was a good
Diggers
one?
was good.
But this was good.
Yeah.
Diggers last year was good, and
Green
Green
Gathering.
Gathering.
Green
Because
Gathering.
we did a Green Gathering gig which is off grid in Derbyshire. And getting there and getting back were a laugh in itself. But we weren't expecting particularly to go down well at that one because nobody knew us. We were sort of on a tent that were out to the side when we got there. It wasn't a particularly good day, but we pulled an audience in and went down really
They were
well.
dancing.
Yeah,
They were
Right,
dancing
so
to
the-
ours.
The only time we ever had a typical festival audience, who were probably all stoned off the Watsits.
And they were quite young.
yeah.
And our warm-up act was Natalie Bennett from the Green Party.
Oh
Yeah,
She was a part, wasn't she?
yeah.
Very earnest. Not very good jokes, but very earnest.
And what set were you doing that day? So Tony, what sort of stuff were you
That
doing?
I think was a full-on political one, wasn't it?
It was, but we put Nando's in.
We've got a parody of Fernando by ABBA, which is called Nando's, so
very
that went
good.
down really well. But we do Yesterday by the Beatles as Theresa May. We've got Fight for Your Right to Party, but it's about Jeremy Corbyn. It's about fighting for the right in your party. So it was a full-on political set, but it was that kind of thing, wasn't it? Going on after a politician was really good because people came to watch the politician and then stayed a bit longer and seemed really into what we were
We
doing.
got invited back.
Yeah, we've been invited back.
We're doing it this year as well.
So
I
you go-
think that's the thing that unites us all, really, that we're all working class socialists.
Yeah.
And
I'd
also,
say so probably 3/4 of what we do now were with a socialist edge on it, and the gigs that we do a lot of stuff at like Bolton Socialist Club, Wigan the Diggers, and Wakefield the Red Shed, all great bastions of socialist strongholds, if you like, and that sort of like forms probably 75% of our sets. We do a lot of stuff for We Shall Overcome, which is the anti-austerity movement through arts, music and poetry and so on. But yeah, I've enjoyed doing the other stuff, like the anti-war stuff that we've done. And I think that's helped to sort of like push us and give us a bit of more of a diverse audience in that we've done comedy, we've done anti-war stuff, we're trying to get these different events.
And you've done a CD as well. I'm going to
And
put
we've
that
done
in.
a CD,
So
yeah.
when now, how long ago was that? Because you're working on a second album, is that right?
Yeah.
Just
So your
started.
first one, which was called
All systems go.
All Systems Go,
Yeah.
and
We made it last summer, I think, didn't we? Was it last August? Yeah. And we spent 2 days in the studio in Wigan. Ian's probably your man to talk about the CD. Really.
Yeah, because the solo stuff I do with the Crows of Albion, I've used a studio in Wigan called Music Projects, and the in-house producer at that studio now is the lead guitarist with Merry Hell, John Kettle. So the last album I did there, he was the producer on it, so he'll be the producer on our new one. The album we recorded last year, that was with a producer called Martin Eaton, who owns the actual studio, and we used some stuff that I'd already recorded, but we did a sort of remix of it with our company voices on. But we also wrote some original stuff for that CD as well. So it was quite political. I'm trying to think if there's any tracks on it that aren't political. They're all political.
Yeah, I think
so yeah, what's the breakup of tracks then? And for anybody that I'll put details as well in iTunes. If anybody gets you through Facebook, they could get a copy of the album if they wanted.
Of course, yeah.
So what was the sort of between all of you? What sort of stuff did you have on, Tony? What was? Can you remember?
I've got a poem called "Tired of Giving Up," which is a line that Rosa Parks once said during the bus protest. I've got a track called "Kick It Out," which is about kicking racism out of football. That problem clearly hasn't gone away in the time since we last recorded it. That was my 2 main tracks, really.
Yeah.
Go on, what did you have?
My 2 main tracks were did Austerity, which was to the tune of Ken Dodd's Happiness.
Right, okay, yeah.
And
Time to Resist.
Time to Resist, there, which is a rap, really.
Okay, yeah, very good. And Jeff, your sort
a
of main...
couple of socialist protest ones. Blame the poor about the government just resorting to taking money off the people who have the least of it, really, and scratch my name off your list again about the government just shutting up all the industries, then getting a cheaper version in, and or having a go at you when it's all gone wrong, like the health service and education and stuff like that.
And Ian,
well, because I brought some stuff from a previous recording project that I'd already released, and we remixed it with all of us on it. But it was stuff like Bag of Bones, which was written for the We Shall Overcome campaign for homelessness. We did a Steve Earle cover called The Revolution Starts Now, which we opened the set with as a Tony Benn intro, and not socialist quotes, but quotes about revolution. And there's a few others that encouraging people. One of them was about how documentary programmes on Channel 4 sort of victimise and demonise the people who are on benefits. So it's called Here There Be Demons.
Funnily enough, I mean, probably the track we sound worse on is probably the most popular on the CD.
which one's that?
Which is the
Trees of May.
Trees of May,
The tune of
which
yesterday.
is-
I think people just like the fact that they recognise the tune, and everybody always seems to compliment us on that.
I mean, we
totally out of tune.
cringe when we hear it. We cringe when we hear it now. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
people seem to.
It's probably the most amusing track,
Yeah.
also, and
Yeah.
people get the satire of it. So
Yeah.
it works
Is it?
well.
And you've got this. So you're doing another album now. So is it hard trying to come up with new material and ideas?
Well, we were saying with this one, because the other one was so diverse, we were underprepared to do it, really. We were bringing our own material from lots of different directions, and we had a sit down last month and talked about the new stuff and said, well, we'll go away and write stuff, but what we'll try and do is write it to some, not as a formula, but we'll try and have a theme for this one. So what you tend to find if you're doing political material is if you mention by name Theresa May or Boris Johnson, by the time you've released the CD, they might not be in office with a bit of luck.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do this time, I think, is to come up with more, not necessarily historic, but more general socialist issues,
Things
such
that have
as things like
inspired us.
Spanish Civil War or Peterloo, and try and write about things that won't change, so that the material's got more longevity than maybe.
Ian's got a brilliant song about Peterloo, and it's the 200th anniversary of it this year, so it's become topical. But that's not going to go away as an important facet of Manchester history. So once that song's recorded, there's nothing to stop us doing it for many years. There's no concern, as Ian says, about people disappearing. So we feel we can do a lot better CD with more preparation and more
we've learned
focus.
a lot from the last one, haven't we? We've introduced new material gradually to the set, and that material is worth putting on a CD. So it's not like we're having to totally start from scratch, whereas with the other one we were more dropping things in that we hadn't really tried. Whereas with this next one, I think we'll have a better idea what works and what doesn't, and how our individual voices and how our individual writing styles fit and fit together. Whereas the other one, I felt it was like we had a load of jigsaw pieces, but we hadn't got the box. So it was like
we hadn't got the picture.
Yeah,
We just stuck them all together.
Although it's still a bargain at £6. Still a small number available.
Yeah, let's talk units. So they are available. So how much is it?
We repressed it. So
Fiver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get you on, Jeff.
So I think I've got a copy already.
Yeah.
But I look forward to the next one. And what's the title for the next album? Do you know yet? That's probably why you're here today.
It is.
Apart from this wonderful podcast,
We are imminent to start recording. I mean, I've got a session booked in a couple of weeks' time, which Jeff is going to come to. So that we can make a start on some of the basic tracks. The problem is, because John's in Merry Hell, he has a lot of gigs, so getting the studio time with him is virtually impossible.
So you'll book the studio time and you'll literally just go in and...
We go in and do like 9 hours, and then it'll take about, I think the last one took about 30 hours to record. I suspect the next one will take more, because I think it's going to be better produced and probably more musical. We used quite a lot of rhythm tracks on the last one that weren't full-blown music tracks, and I think this time we probably want to try and get all music, so there aren't as many highs and lows in the sound.
The fact we've sold the first one and almost sold out is kind of paying for the second one, so it's a kind of non-profit progression, really. We've had a couple of quid out of working, but not a great deal, but we're not in it for the money. We'd be penniless if we were in it for the money, but it's more about it's more about the progression, and we want the second one to be much better than the first.
And do you have an expensive rider when you're in the studio? Is it like Mariah Carey and certain Skittles not
It's Boltonians with the pies.
Roll sandwiches.
It's pies and
Pies and pasta,
Full length mirrors.
it's all. And what about bar companies, gigs wise?
I'm glad you've asked. We've got quite a few coming up. We've got a busy month coming up. At the end of April, on the 27th, we're in Chester to do a fibromyalgia awareness.
Right, brilliant.
My girlfriend Tracy suffers with fibromyalgia, as a lot of people are, finding it difficult to cope with, and some friends of ours are doing a gig. So we've got a gig there with Head Sticks in Chester, and then in May we've got a really busy month, and we've got 3 fantastic gigs that we're really looking forward to, and we've pushed to get on at. And the first one is the first bank holiday weekend, the 0161 Festival in Manchester, which is the anti-fascist event. So we're proud to do that, because that's what we're about. And then on the 18th of May in Wakefield, we're in the Banners Held High Festival and March. So that'll be another good one with a lot of...
That's where all the mining communities come together and bring the banners from the different pits. It used to be the Miners' Gala, the source of it. That's usually really well attended.
It's kind of like Justice for Orgreave movements and things like that. So we're on there, and people like Joe Solo, we do a lot of stuff with. Is on, and then on the bank holiday weekend, the second bank holiday weekend, we're on the Saturday at the Strummer Camp Festival in Oldham.
Oh right, okay.
So
Strummer Camp, so that's a Joe Strummer.
So
You're a massive Clash
fan,
fan.
My favourite band.
Just huge.
Yeah. So I'm comparing as well at the festival, which is fantastic.
Oh, brilliant.
Honour that Phil Fitzpatrick, who's organised it, asked me to do. So made up about that, and we've got a bad company slot. in the Shangri-La tent there, so that should be a
wonderful,
fantastic event. So massive gigs coming up for us, really.
And just because it's Bard Company named after the band. So you're a massive Clash fan. Ian, what's your...
Well, I like heavy metal, but my favourite band of all time is a glam rock band called Sweet.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So I'm old enough to be a glam rocker.
You're going to go with Sweet. Gordon?
I love singer-songwriters.
Okay.
I do, but I've always liked the lyrics and things.
Anyone in particular?
Oh, Joni Mitchell,
Okay,
James Taylor.
Oh, right.
Leonard Cohen.
Dylan.
Dylan. Oh, Tony.
I love a lot of Manchester stuff like the Smiths and Joy Division, but I'd have to make a special mention for the Undertones because in a few days' time I'm going over to Derry to do a show about them in their home city. So
you're doing a show?
I'm doing a show with Jeffarama. He's going to do his Punk's Not Dead poem. Everything comes full circle in the end.
Right.
He was coming over to support us anyway, so he's going to get on stage and do that. And I've got a singer-songwriter called Steve O'Donoghue who's going to do some original songs and some Undertone songs as part of the narrative. And I'm going to blabber on about how much I love the Undertones for about an hour and 45 minutes in Derry. So
if we can have a second choice, I'd like to put Steve Earle in the mix because I get as many Steve Earle songs as I can get into the Bard Company set.
I'll open it to a second choice then. Go on, Jeff.
Second.
So I love asking blokes especially, what's your top one? And they can't do it, they freeze. And then if you open it out to like 3 or
well,
2.
I've probably got about 3 second bands, like The Alarm, The Damned, and maybe Echo and the Bunnymen.
Okay, wonderful.
I'd probably Tracy will hate me for this, but I might probably the Beatles.
The Beatles. Stones, who are they?
Stones, yeah.
He's just trying to go further back than me.
Tony.
I'll throw a curveball in because I recently did a show about the 60s girl band, the Shangri-Las. I just love the weirdness of them and the fact that if you're a teenager called Johnny or Eddie or Tommy, you're not going to make it to the end of a Shangri-Las song.
Okay. Anyway, listen, thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story. And thank you, Bard Company.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Power to the people.
Hell yeah.
You've been listening to Funny Peculiar. Tune in next week. More great guests.